Welcome back to the Colors Are Crutch podcast. My name is Max Sternberg, also known as WoundedSatellite, and I'm joined, as always, by the kindly Lord himself, Max P. the Talion Man. What are we talking about today,
Yeah, well,
Max?
I guess before we even talk about that, just put it out there that we're both pretty sick today. So if our voices sound like shit, it's because Max somehow infected me with his disease through the microphone. I don't even know how. Thanks, Max. Appreciate it, dude.
I will talk about how I was feeling this weekend soon.
And also, before we get into it, just to remind everyone, we are sponsored by Eminence Gaming, and they're the ones who make all these tournaments possible. So thank you, Zane and Mikey and the Eminence crew.
Want to host the best CEDH events in the world? I got the right software for you, Eminence Gaming and the Command Tower software. You want to be a TO? Have easy access to decklist submissions, player management, and just a few clicks of a button. And if your players want to see what they need, all they need to do is scan one QR code, and they have access to the bracket page. This will show them their live pairings and live round results, so they can be updated on how they're doing in the tournament. Make your tournament the best that it could possibly be with the Command Tower software.
So what we're going to be talking about today is, first of all, the Mythic Lotus Series II that happened at the end of December. I did not compete in it. I was with my family. But Max here sort of competed. He sort of zombie walked his way into the top 16 while dying halfway through. So we're going to talk about his experience with that. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the top 4 game, even though Max wasn't in it, just because it was wild.
It was
wild.
It's awesome.
Yeah, really exciting game eventually. Yeah, and then we're gonna kind of dive into the upcoming tournaments that are coming up. There's a whole bunch of them now, and there's some combining of efforts going on between different tournament organizers. So that's leading to even more action, mostly via webcam, but also in person. And then we've got some announcements about the channel that we'll go through, and then Max is going to talk us through some wacky new, monkey ape. King Kong super format.
Whoa, don't spoil it.
Yeah.
Okay, I made a new CEDH format for fun. It is not meant to be CEDH, but it is with CEDH decks where you all start with a version of a Ragavan, and it's really fun. It's really fun. I will explain that later.
We'll get to that.
But I want to do our announcement. I want to do our announcement right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm actually excited. So our big announcement. The time has come. The time has come. The channel is growing. We really want to keep producing more content. We really want to be able to produce more content. And so in an effort to make that happen, we have officially started our Patreon page. It is live. We have 4 separate tiers to choose from, and we are completely open to ideas and feedback on all of that thing and what perks you want to see for us if you like what's already there. We do want to stress, don't feel compelled to join. We're not saying you have to by any mean. It's in no way required to be a part of our Discord or our community, and it just, it's something to help support the show. We do really, really appreciate everything, and we just look forward to continuing to grow with the CEDH community. That's super exciting for us. So the link to our Patreon will be down in the description below. So if that's something that interests you and you want to support us, then absolutely that is helpful. Should I go over what the tiers do?
Yeah, we could do that. But just before you do that, just to put it out there, the goal of this is not for us to go and buy donuts. The goal is for us to look for ways to improve our content. Things like we were discussing this morning, dear God, Max, you need a ring light because your lighting sucks. So that's the kind of thing that we want to put money into from the Patreon. So
helping with an editor for gameplay would be a big one.
Yeah,
I think.
Those are the kind of things we want to do with it. But yeah, go ahead, Max. Talk us through the tiers.
Yeah, so not even looking at it. Let's see if I can nail these just off the dome real quick. First one, just $3 tier, which is just generic, provides nothing, just showing a little bit of support, throwing $3 our way, which is super appreciated. Then we have a insider tier, which gives you access to a special part of the Discord where we have an insider chat, insider feedback, can talk about some of the next episode plans or future episode suggestions, have a little more conversation
which before you go, which will be fun because you'll see how little planning we actually do and how we just stumble into each episode. So you'll get to see some of that. Yeah, but go on.
Well, we're gonna get better at that. Then we have right now a $20 tier that we're calling the Deckmaster tier, and that one one is, same as the insider tier, but it provides the ability where you can send us a couple of decks every month to just have us provide some quick feedback on them and some thoughts without it being too much of an in-depth thing. And then our last tier is a $60 tier that we're calling Disciple of Bolas, and that is where it will come every single month with all of the same features as the previous tiers, but also will include one hour coaching session with your choice of either myself or Max P at some point in that month, over whatever you want to go over for us to be catalysts for your development as a CEDH player.
Yep, you nailed it. And the other thing that'll be included is, you get your special title in our Discord, which you'll want to link the Discord to the Patreon, so you get that special title and special colored title. Woo! And we'll also put your name in the credits as long as you're an insider or more. So yeah, I mean, we're excited because it's just cool that we've grown to the point where we could even ask for something like this and talk about something like this. So hopefully this leads to better content, more interesting content, and just growing the channel.
It's crazy to me that like we did our 500 subscriber giveaway, which we were so excited to hit, and now we're at like 850. It was pretty quick.
Yeah, I wanna.
We're about to double.
If we get over 1,000, I might have to do like a dance on camera or something. I don't know.
Oh, I would love to see that. You should go out. Wait. You're near the coast, aren't you?
Yeah, sort of.
Belly flop.
Oh,
belly flop.
Lord.
Belly flop. Cannonball? Cannonball? Can we see a Max P cannonball from like 10 feet up?
Yeah, no. But maybe we'll put something like that on the playmat that we're coming out with too. So that'll be fun too.
Okay. I did email him about adding a chicken butt into
must add, yes.
That seems like a good addition. We will hopefully have. I'm not quite ready to show what the playmat looks like, but I think the next sketch, if it's not the final one, we might maybe throw a pic in the video for one of these upcoming ones. So they can have a little preview or something.
Yeah, so cool. This is so much fun, dude. So much fun.
It's very fun. Oh, and then we also what we'll talk about it a little more when we get there. What I did this past weekend at the tournament was a little toxic with the IDs. It was really a result of how garbage I was feeling, but we are going to talk about IDs for a little bit, and of course the meta of Lotus Series. We'll go over because there's some interesting decks that showed up quite prominently. You will be surprised to see that Kinnan was like number 5 overall in entries or something like that. There were some surprise decks that were up there.
Yeah, the meta's nuts. It's pretty typical. We'll get to it. But I mean, why don't we jump right into it? Like talk us through like your tournament, like how'd it go? First of all, how'd you feel when you woke up in the morning? Were you on fire, ready to punch everybody and win, or what? How'd you feel?
Absolutely not. So I am living in Denver, Colorado right now, and I live in a basement area of a house. So sometimes it's kind of cold, but normally I fall asleep under the covers cuddling with my dog. That is how I sleep every night. I'm aware it is adorable, and it is in fact adorable. And because the tournaments start at 10 a.m. Eastern time, that means they start at 8 a.m. Mountain time. So I get up before that. So I set my alarm for like 6:45, 7 a.m. to like have a little bit of time to get my head into a space. And I remember not feeling super great when I went to bed the night before. It was like starting to hit me. And I woke up just shivering. Like not normal kind of shivering where it was, not just like, oh, it's cold here. Like I was like kind of fucked up and feeling very, very weak. I knew something was wrong. And I think it took me like 10-15 minutes to finally like get up the gusto to get out of bed. And I was so cold, I put on long johns, and then I put on sweatpants over them, and then I put on a sweatshirt, and then I put on my down jacket over the sweatshirt. And I was still like shivering inside. And then I took my dog outside, I fed her, I did our whole normal morning routine. And then I got here and I went to round 1. And like I was like clearly not there headwise. I was trying to be a functional human being and doing my best. I kind of just treated it where I was like, I know I'm fucked up right now. And the last time I was this fucked up at a tournament was Mox Masters September, I think. When I was just like absolutely destroyed and I had the flu or something, and I was just sitting there like not being a functional human, just had to play slow and just do my thing. Fortunately, my round 1 was really, really, really quick, where I was against, I think it was Najila on first seat, me in second seat, Shurikai in third seat, and Aragon in fourth seat. and I'm pretty sure I sniped a basalt win in like 20 minutes. It was a very, very quick game, and I was just like, all right, glad that worked out. And then I just like sat there feeling like garbage, and I like tried to lay down for a second, but when I started laying down, I was like, I'm absolutely going to fall asleep. But I did end up under the covers in all of my down jackets and stuff, just like kind of waiting. And then it became a problem because I could tell I was going to fall asleep. And annoyingly, this round went 45 minutes over time, which was devastating to someone who was feeling like garbage to have to sit there for like, honestly, because there were like 55, 60 minutes left in the round or something when I finished. So like having to wait over an hour and a half to even like begin the next round, I was just like slowly becoming decrepit. Eventually round 2 started, and it was against a pod of a good friend of mine, Nate, in first seat on blue farm, going into a Kinnan mirror in second seat, going into, what was the stack? Jetmir in third seat, and myself on Kinnan in fourth seat. I'm like mulliganing, I barely can tell what the fuck is going on, and I end up having to mull down to 5, and I kept a hand that was just like, it had fabricated Moonsilver key in it, so I was just like, oh, okay, this is just like, it has a win line in it. I'm on a mull to 5. I'm not there mentally right now. Like, this probably isn't the time for me to try and be a control player and think hard about interaction. Like, let's just try and snipe the win. And what ended up happening in this game was Nate got off to a solid start, and then really quickly there was a collector roof effect, I believe, or something similar to that. I think it was a collector roof effect, yeah. And so I literally sat there doing nothing for like 88 minutes. Like, I just did nothing in this game. I just like played a land and passed, or like played a kid and passed, and like didn't activate. I think I used like maybe one piece of counter magic on one thing when I had to or something, but like pretty much I had almost zero effect on this game the entirety of the game, and just sat around doing very, very little. And eventually I think I like played some elves and stuff. Oh, even like I had a finale of devastation for X=1 that got Aven mind censored. Like just nothing. Like shit like that. Where it's just like I could have nothing in this game. Like that was a point where they did the collector roof. I like tried a finale for 1, and he was like Aven. I was like, okay, cool, like pass, whatever. So my mindset in this game was, I just hope this goes to time. Like I have no way of winning this game. There's no shot I win this game. And my buddy Nate on Blue Farm, I love the guy, and Nate, I'm not trying to upset you by bringing this up. He kind of punted away to win, and he knew he punted away to win. We did get to a position where like I had this win line in hand the entire game, where I just had to fabricate the move. And eventually the collector died. There was a deluge that got rid of like most stuff on the board from Nate, and I looked at my hand that turn, and he had a bunch of mana up, and I was like, I have no interaction here. I cannot beat a single piece of interaction. So I think I'm just gonna play this Trin instead. Just like try and get this game to a draw. So I played the Trin Sphere, and on Nate's following turn, he could have gone for it, but I purposefully held up enough mana to look like I had one piece of interaction through the Trinosphere. And so he got sketched out by it, and so he didn't go for it because he couldn't beat a piece of interaction through the Trinosphere. And where he messed up was he decided to tap out for Crom rather than hold up his 3 pieces of counter magic. And after the game in our conversation, he was like, I honestly have no idea why I did that. I knew that was wrong, and I don't know why I did it. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry.
Well, it's interesting. But that's, it's interesting because I always have the opinion that like you always have a counterspell in your hand. Even if you don't have a counterspell in your hand, you have a counterspell in your hand at all times. Represent having a counterspell, always. Yeah. And like it's kind of like the game is like the opposite of that, because like you bluffed it, right? Like you're supposed to, and they did the opposite, tapped out and didn't represent it at all, even though he had them.
Yeah, and what was funny is, so like once I hit the transfer as well, like I offered the draw. I was like, do you guys just want to draw now? Like I would love to go to bed. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I'd love to take a nap. And the other Kinnan player and Jetmir were totally down, and Nate was like, absolutely not. And then we go to my following turn at this point. I'm like, all right, I have this win line in hand, and I cast Fabricate. I go get Basalt Monolith. I cast Basalt Monolith, and with the Basalt Monolith on the stack, Nate is down to, he has 2 mana. He had like 2 treasures left, which wasn't enough for transfer. In my mindset when he played the Crom, I was like, oh, he has a Spirit Guide, he'll be able to counter this, like whatever. But he didn't. But it seemed like the other Kinnan player was talking like he might have a piece of interaction, and the other Kinnan player said, where Nate was like, God fucking damn it, like I knew this was gonna happen, and the other Kinnan player was like, well, do you want the draw now? and in my brain, I'm like, sick, I don't want to get blown out here, because I figured someone had a piece of interaction for me. So I go, Nate, you want the draw? And Nate looked at his hand, and he said, no. And I said, okay, then I don't think you guys should counter this. So my Basalt lands, I make infinite colorless mana, and then I slam a Moonsilver Key. No one has anything for it. I get Treasure Vault, and I win the game. And by the way, that turn started with like 2 minutes left around, where I had like not cast a relevant spell like the entire game.
Wild.
Like I had played a Dork, had my Finale stopped, played a Trinisphere, and then I just won. I was like, okay, I do not deserve this win, but I got to start off 2-0. It was weird because which, by the way, like if Nate had said he would offer the draw there, what I would say is anyone show me one piece of interaction and I accept this draw. Reveal any piece of interaction from your hand that in any way affects me going for a Basalt line right now, and I accept this draw. And if no one could show me that, then I'd say no. And if anyone just says, here's a Swords to Plowshares, here's one counter spell, here's anything, then I say, cool, draw.
Right. But that didn't happen. Win.
But that didn't happen because Nate declined the draw. I think I had it, I guess.
Or he thought like you that Kitten had an answer.
Yeah, he might have thought that, and so he thought they were going to use it, and then he gets to untap and win because he had to win mine. So yeah, I mean that game was weird, and I'm sorry I can't be as detailed in these rounds as usual. My brain was not there, and this is where it starts. The most toxic thing I've ever done in a tournament, which is triple ID.
a 5-round tournament. Like just think about this for a second. So 5-round tournament. The reality is that if you win your first 2 rounds, you don't have to play again, and you didn't.
Which, when we talk about these, I just want to be clear. Like I do not like the ID system. I'm not a fan of its current structure, and I want its current structure. I want that to be very, very clear. But what I am is a competitive person with the goal, every time I'm going to a tournament, I'm not saying, oh, I want a top 16, oh, I want a top 4. My mental goal is to win that fucking event. And I am very big on don't hate the player, hate the game. And what I'm going to do as a competitive tournament grinder with the goal of winning a tournament is do whatever I feel gives me the best chances of winning that tournament on that day. And if that means IDing to get my points into top 16 to lock my slot, that's what I'm going to do based on the current structure. I do not agree with the current structure, but I'm going to abuse the current structure to win, because that is what I'm there to do.
100%. Doing anything other than that is literally acting against your own interests.
It is super toxic, though. And the stupid thing about this is the fact that I was able to, after going 2-0, triple ID in to finish at 13 points, which normally I would think would put you as like, oh, you're going to be like the 6th, 7th, 8th seed, something in that range generally. I was the fucking 4 seed. I was on the play for my top 16 game after just like playing 2 games of Magic and then doing nothing for 5 hours. That's actually stupid. Like that blowed my mind.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that, which I do want to talk more. Like it was kind of funny actually when in these rounds. Round three we didn't draw immediately. It was against it was the old 2-0 pod. So I was against Jay. He's a very, very talented Magic player. I was against a couple other people, I don't remember their names right now, but like we got in the game, and when this game started, I was literally falling asleep at the desk because my last game went to time, so I did not have as much of a break in between rounds. It still went over time by like a little bit, but because I didn't know it was going to go over time, I couldn't like go take a nap or go do something. I had to sit there and wait because the next round could start at any point, because especially when these rounds go over time, they're pretty quick about last game ended, submit the round, start the next one. And if you're like 3 minutes late for your game, you like lose shit. Like you have to sit there. So I had to like sit there for whatever it was, a pretty large amount of time. It was like 40 minutes over again. And then the next game starts and I am like actually falling asleep at the desk, feeling like the worst I've felt all day significantly. I really do not want to play Magic right now. And I kind of begged them. I was like, for the love of God, can we please ID? I like can't do this right now. Everyone was down, and then I believe Jay said no, which he was on the play. So like I totally get that. If I was on the play and I wasn't feeling like shit, I would also say no in that position. So 100% I can understand it. And we ended up being the stream game, and this was a little awkward because we decided to draw like 2 turns into the game, where we were kind of talking about it during the game, and like after we did hands, Jay was like down to draw once we got our starting hands because he mulled low, but then Ob Nix wasn't down to draw because he had a gas starting 7. And then Ob Nix did his first couple turns, and he was down to draw, and then Jay was like, give me one more turn. And so we got in this position in the game where, this is what I say, whenever someone's offering the ID and everyone's agreeing and one person isn't, and they're like, I want one more turn. I'm like, but then at that point, someone's not going to offer it. That is always what happens. And you go in this fucking cycle of one person being like, well, now I don't really want to because now I think I'm in the best spot.
The draw never happens.
And finally, a few turns in, Yeah, a few turns in, I was like, guys, like, for the love of God, rather than have this conversation every turn, can we just draw? And finally, we just agreed to a draw, which was pretty awkward for the stream because they just saw us play 2 turns of Magic and then just.
I was not watching at that
sorry
point,
about
but yeah, that's crazy.
It was pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I didn't give a shit though at that time. I was just like, get me to bed, and I immediately shut that off. Went and ate a bunch of food, and then went and lay down. And I took a nap in between. This started a pretty comical stretch for me, where what I did for the next couple rounds was I went to bed and set alarms on my phone for when the next round would start, and I would fall asleep. Literally, I was under my comforter, wearing 2 pairs of pants, a sweatshirt, and a down jacket, wearing all of this, under the covers, still shivering, going to sleep, and then I would wake up at the start of the round. I would hop into my pod. I would turn on my computer was sitting, next to me in bed, so I would have it open, and I would literally turn on the camera when I was in my pod for my game. If they were like, "Oh, you're in pod 1," I would go to pod 1. I would turn on my video camera so everyone could see me laying down under the covers in bed, and I would say, "I'm not getting out of bed until I know if we're drawing it."
Damn.
And we.
Damn. What? I did not know that. What the hell? That's crazy.
Yeah, I did
That's
this.
crazy.
I did this both. I said, I'm not getting out of bed until I know if we're drawing or not. And I'm sick. I'm sorry, guys. And then we agreed to a draw both times, and then I would say, cool. And then I would go back to bed, and then I woke up at the next round timer and do the same thing to draw again.
Bro, that's wild. That's wild.
I don't think that was like, it wasn't like disrespectful.
No, it's just hilarious. It's just hilarious. It's like,
I was just like,
that's wild. See, that's broken, dude. That's broken.
So I slept for like 3 hours, which was needed. And then I woke up after the 3 hours for top 16 and saw that I was somehow the 4th seed. That is not okay. And we went into our top 16 game, which was me on the play, into Kaka on blue farm in 2nd seed, into Erskine on Jensen Luris in 3rd seed, into a new player whose name I do not know on... Yeah, it was against Zellix Sanity Flare, and this guy, like what he said is he was like, I am not a tryhard, look what I'm playing, and he was obviously very, very new to the format, and that ended up being, sadly, a pretty bad thing in this game, for how some interaction points were missed and used, even though I tried my best to provide the answers. I ended up mulling kind of low, as I do in these games. I kept a hand, or no, I didn't mull that low. I mulled to 6, actually. That wasn't that low. But the hand I kept, because again, I got, for the record, still brain dead for this top 16 game. Honestly, like, couldn't have given a shit. I genuinely considered dropping before top 16 because I just didn't. I was like, there's literally no chance I'm gonna win this today. I'm like not in the mindset. But so I kept a 6, and my starting 6. Let's see if I can fucking remember this. It was a basic island, Gaia's Cradle, Mystic Remora, Rhystic Study, one of the elves, and some other kind of irrelevant card. I don't remember what it was, but it like wasn't relevant in any way. That was my 6. So it was 2 lands, 2 draw engines, but it was a Gaia's Cradle land, so it didn't work for anything. An elf and something else. And I was like, okay, that maybe it was Seaborn. Maybe it's Seaborn. It's like the last card, which isn't really relevant in that hand anytime. But so on the play, I just go Island Fish, and it gets red blasted by Kaka. I was like, okay, cool, pass. And I just kind of sat there doing nothing, like literally the entire game. I did make one big mistake here, where at one point my last card was Pongify. That's what it was. I went to Pongify the Timna, and it got Swan Songed, and I missed the fact that the Swan turned on my Gaia's Cradle, which was actually super helpful because my Gaia's Cradle wasn't doing anything, and I didn't draw another land for this entire game. Pretty much. And so I actually could have done stuff 1 turn earlier. I don't think it would have made like any real difference, so it's like not a big deal in my brain. That game was never meant for me to win. But the really sad thing about this game was a few decision points that were interesting. The first one was, like, Jensen Luris is a very quick lead deck, and he went for a quick Hermit Druid, while also having a Dothy Voidwalker on the battlefield. And Dothy Voidwalker, incredibly good card against blue farm, because can't breach, and incredibly good card, I would imagine, against, I don't even know how to pronounce this name, Sanity Flare. And when someone went to towards his Hermit Druid in a couple turns, which was obviously there to bait out the Darevi. You know, it was blue farm trying to swords it, and I was like, don't crack your Darevi. Like, you know this isn't going through. You know that you can't Hermit Druid right now anyway. You don't have the mana, you don't have the capability. It's not like you're firing it off this turn. Like, you know that that's not happening. Don't give up the Darevi here. And I understand from his perspective, like, he really wants to keep one of his win lines intact. And we talked about this after the game a little bit. He was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have cracked the Darevi, but like he you know, in the moment was like, he said this might be wrong, but I feel like I have to protect it, and crack his Darevi, try and counter these swords, and you know, blue farm had the deflecting spot as well to say, cool, get fucked. And you know, is whatever. That all happens. And then we go to, you know, the Sanity Flayer's turn. He, like, does a few things for a few turns. I sit around doing nothing. Like, the game, I'm sorry that I can't, like, say more about this game in more detail. I just,
you were
wasn't
barely
there
alive
mentally.
at that point.
But
yeah.
But Blue Farm got to a position that they were obviously going to win the game. It was very clear to me that they were going to win the game on their next turn. So I started trying to assist which by the way, the reason I say the Sanity player was a newer player was because, like, I had to explain what Hermit Druid did. Like, he didn't know what Hermit Druid did. He didn't know what the Hermit Druid combo was. He was like, how does that win the game? How does that win the game? I was like, okay. So, like, obviously he just like wasn't aware. He didn't even know, like, how the breach lines worked and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm having conversations, and it ended up, by the way, the blue farm player reanimated the Jensen Lewis's Darevi. So he had a Darevi on board, and so there was a tutor out of the Sandy player, and I was telling him, I was like, obviously you can't win the game right now. Like, you know, I was asking him cards that he plays, and most of them he wasn't having, and I was like, okay, can you clone the Darevi?
Right.
And he was like, yeah, I could get a clone. I was like, get a clone for the Darevi. And he was like, I'm just gonna put this card on top. I'm just gonna put an interaction piece. Okay. I don't know, I've like provided the answers, but sure. And so then he, you know, we go to my next turn, I just like untap, play like Elf. I finally play like Kinnan Elf or something like that, which felt nice. Like, get some man on board. And my top deck for turn was actually a Tidespot Tyrant. So funny enough, if we had gone one more cycle, there was like a world that I could do something. But we go to Blue Farm's turn here. And this is obviously like the win attempt turn. He Enlightened Tutors for LED. To try and like bait out, because by the way, the Sanity Flare Commander has a tap ability to just like put stuff in your graveyard, so the LED was a nice touch. I come to find out really late in this turn, the Sanity Flare player had a flash clone in hand. He had stun double. So what he should have done right there, the second the LED was put on top and revealed, he should have just flashed in the stun double and put that shit into exile. And right there, that would have ended Blue Farm's win. Like, absolutely, I don't think he would have won from that position if he didn't have that LED.
Right.
So.
Right.
Like, that right there, interaction point that could have saved us. So he decides not to mill on the LED, which I think was correct to not mill on the LED because I didn't know he had the clone in hand. And remember, he's put some piece of interaction on top, and he has Miko Koro on the battlefield, the land that like can make every player draw a card as well. So that's on the battlefield. So he goes for his Tymna draws after he like attacks with his Tymna creatures, and then in response to the Tymna trigger, he casts a Vampiric Tutor. Knowing his interaction for the Vampiric Tutor, and he puts a card on top. And I once again instruct him, like, you should absolutely build this card here. Like I'm aware it could be a brain freeze, and he's big braining us, but like I think you should mill this card here. And he goes, I'm gonna interact in a different way. And he goes to and he taps his Miko Koro and another thing to cast Dramatic Reversal to just untap his Mana Crypt and Mox Diamond. And I'm like, don't tap your Miko Koro. And he goes, no, it's fine. I'm casting Dramatic Reversal. I'm like, don't. He goes, no, I'm casting Dramatic Reversal. And he like wouldn't have any of it. And then he casts Dramatic Reversal. And then he reads the card. And he goes, oh, this doesn't untap Miko Koro.
Oh, no.
And I was like, yeah. I literally, I said this. Like, and so he was like, oh, that sucks. Okay. And so then he just lets the Tymna draws go through, doesn't mill. And then the guy starts casting the important spells from hand that now he's been allowed to double tutor for, and then he flashes in a stun double to copy Darevi, and then tries to randomly mill with a silence on the stack. And I'm like, you could have done all of this earlier in the turn, and it would have saved us. Like, you had the answers, and I was telling you to use them. I was providing you the answer key here. Like, it was a little bit frustrating, not because, like, I thought I had any real, like, good chance in this game, so I'm not mad that I lost the game from any perspective of, like, oh, that one was mine. Like, no, I probably was never winning that game, but it was just annoying to, like, have the game be so easily tossed away when we had the answers, and I was like telling them the fucking answers and like exactly, and I wasn't doing it in a pushy way at all, like especially with like how I was feeling. I was very calm about it. I was just like, here's my thought process, this is probably what they're getting, this is what I would do in this moment, I suggest this for this, like, do what you think is best. Like, that is mostly how I would say it. It was not pushy, it was not directing him to do something, but it was providing the answers over and over again, and those answers were correct. So it was a little frustrating to have the game be thrown away so easily in that way.
I mean, that stuff happens. I mean, it, unfortunately, that's the way it goes sometimes. You try to explain everything. Everything, and people look at you kind of dubiously, or they think they know better, and then it doesn't. They don't, and you lose. I will.
Well, I would hope that.
I will say, just before you say that, I will say, like, while you've been talking, I've been sitting here just looking at the Zellix Scion of Halaster deck, and it's actually pretty freaking cool. I'll put a link to it in the description. The guy clearly knows what he's doing, because this deck is actually constructed extremely well. I don't know that it's it's not an S tier deck, obviously, but it's pretty neat, actually.
It's a cool deck. Yeah, it is a cool deck. Which I do want to be clear. I'm not trying to shit on this guy and like make him feel bad. Like, he openly was like, I'm not a tryhard, I am newer. He didn't know his basic, like, very common CDH win combos. Like, that's not me saying anything negative about him. That's just like his open honesty about his experience, and like obviously he was a newer player, and like if you don't know what you're up against, it's helpful to listen to some other people what you might be up against.
For sure. And I think we'll see him more, because clearly he's got some talent here. Yeah. But sucks that it ended that way, but at least you could go to sleep, right?
Yeah, that was the hope. So, I mean, the game ended. I was in Kaka won. Awesome win by Kaka. Kaka's a super nice guy, by the way. Actually, I really like him. Big fan. Also, his altars for his Temnos. Really, really cool. Big fan. And then we went to the finals. The finals was it's gonna be shocking. This is the spiciest fucking pod you guys have ever heard of.
Lots of creative different decks,
on
right?
The play?
Lots of creative different decks.
Oh my god, dude, the most creativity I've ever seen. On the play, you got Blue Farm. Going second, you got Blue Farm. Going third, you got Darevi. And then going fourth, dude, guess what? You got Blue Farm.
Yeah. Hilarious.
What a open and not what an unsolved.
Which is what's interesting though is Blue Farm wasn't the number one submitted deck in this tournament. Like, it just made.
Yes, it was.
It? No, was it? I'm looking at the.
No,
it was not.
Wasn't.
It was Sisse.
Oh my god, it's 0 out of. Okay, we'll get to that when we go to that. I'm gonna shit on that.
There were 9 Blue Farm entries, and 4 of them converted. That's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, that's
pretty good.
Actually wild. What is happening right now? Blue Farm went through a phase earlier in the year where a lot of newer players picked up the deck and were making its numbers look worse. Now I think we're at a phase where a lot of good players are picking up Blue Farm because they think it's clearly the best. And so the people playing Blue Farm are actually like gross. Like, they're good pilots.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of always been like that, dude. Keeps cycling. That cycle keeps happening. New players play it, they suck. Older players play it, they win. And the deck just keeps coming around.
Blue Farm, Darevi, Blue Farm. So you had Ganesha on the play, who had a very strong start going for a turn 2 One Ring. You had Kaka, who sat there the entire game doing almost absolutely nothing. He went land pass for like pretty much every turn of this entire fucking game. It was like we were laughing in the chat about like, oh, is he gonna cast a spell? And he just wasn't. He's straight chilling. Darevi had what you could consider to be the absolute nut start by Darevi. They, on turn 2, had both the One Ring and Darevi on the battlefield. So Darevi had its absolute dream draw, and then Waffle in 4th seed mulled to 3. Just straight mulled to 3. And ended up coming back into this game in pretty incredible fashion because he hit the Mystic Remora. But his mull to 3 went Plateau Esper Sentinel, drew a couple cards, then he hit a Mystic Remora, and he quickly like ended up with a card advantage engine that kept him in the game in a similar regard to like the One Ring and for both Ganesha and Darevi. And yeah, it was very interesting. And Ganesha's One Ring wasn't his own One Ring. It was he had a turn 3 One Ring because he hit Phyrexian Metamorph off of Kaka's deck with a Ragavan, if I remember correctly. I remember this game better than my own. That's kind of fucking funny.
Yeah, 'cause you got some sleep at that point.
I was like laying in bed watching it. I was like, it's kind of a good game. But yeah. So this game is interesting though, and so we ended up in this card advantage grind where especially Darevi with the One Ring just draws so many cards, and if you can't deal with the One Ring, dealing with Darevi is something you feel like you have to do, but it's really shitty to do because it just lets him put Darevi back into play at instant speed for 4 mana, which also untaps the One Ring again. And it was quite funny, too. Like, we were laughing about, oh, Bant can't win the game because Darevi was drawing, 10, 20 cards a turn and, just wasn't able to find a win for a long time while fighting through the Blue Farm players. And the Blue Farm players are obviously still fighting against each other, and they all have so much interaction and so much stuff is being used. And the most interesting thing about this game, I think, was that all 4 silences ended up getting used.
There's a silence that I saw.
All 4 players.
Silences. That's my tuned in, was the silence, yeah.
All 4 players cast silence at some point in this game. And so that goes on for a while, and we end up in a position where Darevi is pretty much going to win, and then Ganesha ends up having to use a pack of the game. Which was weird to see. He ended up using a bunch of interaction on a turn where he was going to die to his One Ring trigger and upkeep. And I believe that some deal with Waffle was made where Ganesha would get another turn. Waffle could not win on his turn because it went Darevi, Waffle, Ganesha. For Ganesha to use this much interaction when he got this life total, he was like, I want to get another turn, I have to get a chance. Which,
Sure.
No qualms with that. I would do the same thing in that position. If I'm going to lose the game to my One Ring trigger and you want me to use my interaction to stop this win attempt, I'm like, tell me that I get another turn and we got it. You know what I mean? So he does that, and he has a full fucking grip of cards because he didn't just have a copy of the One Ring. He also had Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora on the battlefield at this point. So every spell that's being cast,
and Lotho too, right? He had Lotho at that point too, I think. Jeez.
Yes, and the Lotho was murdering him. The Lotho is what actually murdered him. He was at 12 life. And then just went down to 4 life from Lotho triggers in the turn cycle from people doing stuff on turns. It was kind of crazy. But so Waffle untaps, plays some stuff and passes, and we go to Ganesha's turn, and he does go for a Born Upon Win kill. And then I believe after he really tries to go for the win, it might have been with the Born on the stack or something.
Silence, right?
Kaka throws out the silence. I believe was the 4th silence of the game, which kills Ganesha's chance of winning. Where obviously his hand was this thick, he would have won if the Born Upon Win resolves. So the silence was definitely needed, and from there.
That
was the game. Or not the game. That was it.
But no, but think about it for a second. So Ganesh was about to win on his turn at 1 life with a One Ring trigger on the stack, with Born Upon a Win.
4 life.
No, he was at 1 life by that point.
Oh, because the Mana Crypt roll.
So he's at 1 life. He cast the Born Upon the Wind, where he would have won in upkeep in response to dying to the One Ring trigger. And that's already pretty crazy. It doesn't work. He dies, right? The silence stops him.
He dies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then we go to Kaka's turn. And Kaka, per usual, passes the turn. Doesn't really do shit. And then here's where it gets crazy. Because now this is Darevi's turn to absolutely...
He only has 20 cards left in the library at this point, right? The rest of the cards are basically in his hand. Yeah.
And Darevi, by the way, on their turn, they are at, I think, 9 life?
6
or 10
life.
And they're wondering... Oh, they're only at 6 life. And their One Ring is going to hit them for over 10. It was 10 or 11. So they're dead on their upkeep as well. And they had the Angel's Grace. So they play the Angel's Grace to survive their One Ring trigger, which does take them to negative life at this point. So they are at a negative life total, but Angel's Grace, because you can't die, that's fine. You can't lose the game for having negative life. But your life is negative because life loss brings you low 0, damage can only bring you to 1. And then they start going on this line to try and win the game, where they put a Grand Abolisher on the stack at one point. And that is where shit gets really, really interesting. Kaka responds to the Grand Abolisher by casting his own Angel's Grace, which to everyone in the audience means Darevi's done.
Right.
Darevi is not going to be winning the game this turn. They're going to die to a negative life total right when they pass the turn. That's it. And then Kaka, because Darevi, by the way, has cast a bunch of spells this turn before the Grand Abolisher to just get things started with ramp and such. And so they have played a bunch of spells. There were a few pieces of counter magic used. They put the Grand Abolisher in the stack. Then there's a Angel's Grace out of Kaka, and Kaka goes, this is my time to shine, baby. And he fucking plays a Dark Rit into an Oppo, which you're thinking like, okay, maybe he's just trying to stop Waffle from winning. And then he finishes it off with a Brain Freeze. All targets targeting Freedom Waffle in 4th seat, milling out the rest of his library in his graveyard.
Yeah.
Which immediately everyone's like, holy shit.
Brilliant.
Darevi can't win. Darevi's at negative life. He's Angel's Grace, so he can't lose the game in this turn. So Darevi's going to have to pass, and he's going to die. He's going to go to Waffle's turn. Waffle, if he doesn't have a Born into exactly Thoracle in hand, like, he draws himself out, he dies. And then Kaka is the lone remaining player. This was like the most big brain genius line I have seen. This man sat there doing fucking nothing the entire game and was going to just snipe this. After all 3 other players had ridiculous card advantage engines, were dominating this like 3-hour game, and he just chilled. He just chilled. He was patient, and he found his line. He found his window, and I was like honestly happy for him. It was one of the sickest wins I could have possibly imagined. So that all resolves, and then the Grand Abolisher's back on the stack. At that point, everyone passes on it, and Darevi says, fucking bet. And this man goes, cool, Emil, Infinite Mana, Eternal Witness, Get Back Blind Obedience, loop my Lotus Petal to infinitely drain you guys with Blind Obedience. Guess what? I'm back in positive life now, and you guys are in the negatives. Pass the turn, win the game. Absolute shock to everyone. Everyone thought Kaka had it. Everyone thought it was done. And then Darevi just said, get fucked, stay fucked. That shit was awesome. That was such a sick win. Yeah,
one of the most cool plays I've ever seen. I've only seen this kind of thing. Like, Kaka's line was insane. And Darevi's line was even better. It
was so good. It was so good.
And especially after like a long, this is one of those like toxic, one ring, Mystic, Ristic, everyone drawing 800 billion cards. Like, those kind of games are just painful. But the way it ended, man, holy crap. I mean, that's why we play the fucking game, man. Is for games like that. Yeah.
Keep in mind, this is where Darevi, with all of this on the stack, has only 2 cards left in library. Waffle has been milled out because his library was small enough that he could get milled out. He drew that many cards. And Ganesha had most of his deck in his hand. Like most of the decks were used in this game.
Yeah.
People had their decks in their hand. It was that kind of game. It was crazy. And then Kaka just drew 5 cards and then tried to win.
Yeah, just insane. Yeah. What a great game. What a great game. So really I highly recommend. I will put the link to the Twitch feed for that game in the description, because dude, you gotta go watch this game. You just gotta watch it. Like, fast forward through pieces of it.
Twitch?
I pulled it up while you were talking so I could remind myself of some of it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all there. The first hour or so, hour and a half of it's kind of painful. But you can see what's developing and then get to the end of it and see just that explosive final 2 or 3 turn cycles where things just get bonked.
How long was it?
2 hours and 50 minutes.
That's about right.
Yeah, almost just shy of 3 hours. Definitely worth a watch. But yeah, the meta for the tournament was a little bit wonky. Not totally wonky, but a little bit wonky.
I mean, I'm laughing at a few of these decks that showed up in high numbers and how they did. Can I talk, or do you want to talk through these?
We'll go back and forth. Like,
okay. I mean, in first seed though, everyone's been the most entries of the tournament. The deck that was submitted more than any other deck is a deck that I do love. It's a deck that I really appreciate. It's a deck I enjoy playing. But it's a deck that everyone has had as their number 4, number 3, number 5 deck recently. And I was like, I put it 10 probably. I don't think it's actually that good. I think it's kind of a Brewer's Advantage deck to some extent. It's to say Weatherlight Captain, coming in with 11 total entries, the most out of any deck in this tournament, and a collective 0 top 16s.
Yeah. And it's not like there weren't good Sisay players. I mean, Baneslayer 88 was in there, Malcolm Beckford was in there. It just couldn't convert, man. Just couldn't get it done.
Dude, not the weekend for Sisay.
Yeah, and Baneslayer came close. He got 2 wins. He ended up with 11 points, but bubbled out at 21st overall. And that's it, dude. That's it. Sisay did not show up.
I'm super surprised to see 0-3-1 out of Malcolm. It's kind of shocking.
Yeah, I do wonder though that Malcolm's one of those guys who's in person I think is much more dominant than in a webcam. And I think that's webcam tournaments are just a different animal, I think.
Totally fair. Totally
yeah,
fair.
but
I mean, also just everyone, not everyone, sometimes people just have a bad.
I have a hard time with webcam
He's
tournaments
obviously
myself.
an incredible pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
totally
Malcolm.
got it.
Malcolm's one of my favorite CEDH players on the planet. We got to have him on at some point, by the way, because he's
Oh, I'd love
fantastic.
that Malcolm on. He was a super nice guy when I met him in
Yeah.
person.
So yeah, and then coming in number 2 as opposed to number 1 like usual is Blue Farm with 9 entries, but a conversion rate of over 44% with 4 getting in. That's insane. That's like so good.
I mean, there was another deck with a very similar conversion rate. We'll get to it in a second.
Yeah, but you also have, I mean, like some of the best pilots on. You got Kaka, you got Ganesh, you got Waffle, obviously. Yeah, so there's just a
Like,
yeah, Jeremy Rowe. Who's Jeremy Rowe? I don't recognize the name. Oh, that's Jay. That's Jay.
Name. But I mean,
yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. Look at that. You get Kaka, Ganesha, Freedom Waffle, and Jay all on Blue Farm. And what do you know? All 4
Shocker.
Top 16. They're all fucking great pilots.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So that makes
big
total
surprise.
sense. Makes total sense. And then the next one, that was just shocking. But go on. Yeah.
The next most submitted deck. This one's probably the funniest to me. I've really been enjoying these things that are happening lately, where like a deck will do well in a tournament or win a tournament, and then like the next tournament, a bunch of people fucking show up with it, and then it just does trash like every time. There's not been a time that someone has showed up with a deck and done well with it, and then a bunch of people bring it to the next tournament, and that deck does really well. That just hasn't happened. And here's a great example. So earlier in this year, at the beginning of the year, Rocco was like a good deck, kinda. It had some performances, and then it like didn't have a single top 16 for like several months, where it just like did not have a single performance. And then randomly Rocco showed back up like a few weeks ago with like a few top 16s and like a few other decks that were still doing well even out of the top 16s. So for this tournament, fucking 7 people showed up with Rocco and a collective 0 top 16 on Rocco.
Yeah. What's interesting is they weren't terrible. Like they didn't do as bad as Sisse. I mean, you got like 2 11-pointers, and then you got 2 10-pointers. So it put up some wins.
You had 4 people with 2 wins. That is like all of them did well, which actually that is something we should highlight. Although they did not convert to top 16, like we're looking at placements of 19, 22, 23, 25, and 100-person event. Like they were all close.
Yes.
So like Rocco still did well actually when you look at that, but it didn't convert.
Right. But 7 Rocco entries out of nowhere. It's just amazing to me.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. And very similar, before we talk about, there's a few decks tied for 5 here. But another one in a very similar vein to Rocco is Corvold.
Yes.
Where Corvold hasn't been seeing a lot of play lately. Sean Angel comes out and absolutely obliterates me and wins the Chaos event.
Say that again?
It was Chaos, right? It was Chaos.
Again. He what? He what? He...
Obliterated.
Obliteration. Good job, Sean. Good job, Sean. Well done.
Yeah, good job, Sean. We love Sean. We love Sean here. And then if 5 people show up with Corvold, and of course, Sean does well. You know what I mean? Sean did 3 wins, 1 loss, where he actually very funny. He missed round 1, like actually showed up late and like missed round 1 entirely, and just had to take that as a loss or whatever, or like had to take it as like a non-game or something. But then still pumped out 3 wins to go into top 16 on the play as like the 2nd overall seed. So kind of insane there. And then one other Corvold player had 2 wins, but then 1 collective win between the other one.
Yeah. I mean, I think that deck is legit. It requires a really talented pilot to put up results like that, and which Sean clearly is.
Which there are 2 really good Corvold pilots, because there's Sean and then there's also MZ. And I think actually MZ is the one that got 2 wins. I don't know if that was him, but I would imagine.
Well, Ashani used to play Corvold as well, but it's been a while.
Well, he's not playing it right now. Yeah. Which like also doesn't like Connor play Corvold?
He has, but no, not right now. He's been on Jun Dargo.
I know. Yeah, so I mean, but people who have played Corvold, like Ashani used to play Corvold. I think Connor played Corvold, I think. And then Eric from like the Lamora's Card videos is a big Corvold guy. Mm-hmm. There's a few. I mean, some people who love Corvold love Corvold. You know what I mean?
Yeah, understandable. When you
definitely one of those. Go
back and watch our last video, and you'll see why people love Corvold. It's pretty broken when it gets going. But yeah.
Oh, it's absolutely insane if you're allowed to get going. And then also with 5 entries, we have a pretty spicy deck here. Kinnan Bonder Prodigy.
I heard that deck's all right.
A total of... Yeah, it's pretty good. A total of Total of 5 entries and 2 top 16s, giving it a 40% conversion rate, pretty similar to Blue Farm there. Two people who top 16 on it are myself and Jorman, and then we did have another Kinnan player finish with 2 wins and get pretty close.
Nice. Yeah. Jorman playing Kinnan. Wow. Yeah. He's done that before.
That's not his first. He's top 16 on Kinnan before. That's not his first time.
I remember back in like the fall.
You know, I was talking to Jorman a few weeks ago, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna put in bribery. Like a lot of people playing these fat decks right now. I want to steal Hull Breakers."
It sounds like Jorman.
That was actually what that was what he said to me.
That sounds like Jorman. Yeah. And then the other fives, fives are kind of as expected. Rogsai and Talion, seems to be picking up a little bit, although they didn't do real well.
Yeah, I mean the sad thing is every time I look at a Talion deck, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I know.
With these choices, like I'm looking at them and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't
just
understand
to put it out there, if anyone's interested in a really crazy Talion list, there was another tournament over the weekend that Talion did make top 16, but it's a Talion deck that like I've never seen before, and I'll put the link in the description. I don't think we need to go into it at all. It's wild. It's a completely different.
Okay.
Like. It's hard to even call it a CDH deck, really, but it's top 16, so I guess.
Okay, so I am looking at the Talion deck that came the closest right now. That came in 34th place. Incredibly similar.
Yes.
So this one is this one is like just a few cards off of ours.
Actually, all of the ones in here are not that far off. Like most of them are like under 10 cards different.
Okay.
Yeah.
None of them are on like the really crazy.
No,
stuff.
not like the end of the year. This is the end of year Mox Diamond CDH tournament, and there's a list.
Oh, that one's
that is just completely off the beaten path. But we don't need to talk about it. I'll just put the link in, and you guys can check it out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then kind of rounding out the meta here for entries. At 4 entries, we have Kendrick the Return King. Again, same conversation as last weekend. A deck that had a really high conversion rate. People were hyped on it. People are bringing it. Not doing well with it. A deck that has been surprisingly very dominant at 3 entries. We have Francisco Thrasios, mostly headlined by Temujin, but then had 2 top 16s in this tournament. I don't know who Samuel Berkeley is. I don't know if he's on the same. Oh, he's okay. He's. I assume that's. Oh, that was D-Mage. It was D-Mage. That's D-Mage. But yeah, both D-Mage and Temujin top 16 on this list, which is super cool. The fact that they are like collectively brewing this list, Chicken Noodle Soup. I've made a version of it called Chicken Noodle Soup Chef Boyardee Special when I made some changes to it. But yeah, super cool deck. A deck I expect to see more of. I think it has legs. I mean, like I'm still not convinced it's like S tier or anything, but I think it's a really cool deck, and I think it's right now hitting the meta in a very nice way, where its combos are not fully known, not fully expected. People don't know how to play against it, the proper play patterns to play against it. So it's in this really good position right now of being a strong deck that gets to fly under the radar, and that's like the best possible position you could be.
Yeah, I think it's. I would call it a. I don't think it's a great deck. I don't think it's a great deck, but it's good. It's a good enough deck, and it's got Brewer's Advantage, and it's being piloted right now by 2 extremely talented Magic players. So that combination of that is allowing it to put up results. We'll see if at some point.
Well, I think
we'll see if
I do want to apply. I think that was D-Mage's first ever top 16. So well done.
Dude's good though, so it won't be his last.
Yeah. But he's mainly a stacks player, so it's interesting to see him get a little bit out of stacks.
Yeah, well, that's usually what happens. Is stacks players suffer for a really long time, and then they try something else and realize, oh, yeah, I hate me too, and I'll play real Magic now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Next up, though, we have a pretty cool deck to top 16. We have a favorite of mine, Ob Nix Captive Kingpin, with 3 entries and 1 top 16. And the person that top 16 on it is a guy that I coached on Ob Nix a couple of weeks ago. And we completely changed around his list and his philosophy with the deck. And he's been a huge fan of the changes and being this more proactive, focused shell. And, we've talked a lot since the tournament, and like he's having a lot of fun with it. He's definitely developing as a player, doing really well right now. I watched one of his games, actually, whoever was his round 1 opponent, where they put their video on YouTube. I quickly sped through it and got to see him play and pulled up some notes about it. But super proud of Skelt for making top 16 here and on Ob Nix Captive Kingpin. Keeping the boy alive here.
Nice. I'm looking at his list right now. It looks pretty damn good. So
it's like 4 cards different.
Yeah, and he did it. ninth place overall. So damn good.
And then kind of shocking to only see 2 Tivit entries.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I thought Tivit was in a really good place right now. With everything slowing down and being more Mystic Study focused, like that's where Tivit does better. So I was surprised to see Tivit get less, which obviously losing to Mugen hurts. Like not having your literal premier pilot, it hurts. But
yeah, it's really interesting
still,
that it hasn't been
more
played more. Like that's really interesting to me. Maybe they're anticipating the return of Turbo, which is kind of something I was expecting as well, and we have seen a little bit of that. So maybe that's part of it. But like people are not playing Tivit at all.
I mean, I've never played Blue Farm. I wonder how, or Tivit. I wonder how the Blue Farm Tivit matchup is, because if that really favors Tivit, or if that really favors Blue Farm, maybe the Tivit players are sick of it because there's so much Blue Farm right now.
That's a good question. I don't know. I've played Blue Farm and never played Tivit, so I don't know if it favors them. Good question.
Not quite sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is I went back to just look real quick at Treasure Series 9, and there were a ton of Tivits, but it didn't do well. It got 1 conversion, although it made top 4, obviously. So maybe people saw that and like shied away from it too. Maybe that's what's going on.
I mean, there were 4 Darevis after Ian's performance.
Well, Darevi's pretty sick deck. It looks like a lot of fun to play, so I imagine a lot of people pick it up. Tivit's kind of old hat at this point, so it's not as exciting to see. So,
which like it's surprising to see these changes, but I welcome it. I love seeing less Blue Farm, more Rocco, more Corvald, more Darevi, more Francisco Thras, like more of these spicy newer decks. Like I'm all for that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, less blue.
We had a couple of Francisco Croms. We had 2 Thrasios Vial Smashers. We had 2 Dargo Timnas. We had a Sephiroth that made top 16. We had a Joda the Unifier that made top 16. We had Zellix Sanity Flare that made top 16. We had the Jensen Luris deck make top 16. We had 1 Crom Tebish at top 16. And then again, like we're in a 100-person event, and there were 54 different decks entered.
Yeah, wild.
Like that's awesome to see.
Great,
awesome,
great, diverse meta still. You're still gonna run into Blue Farm, Sisay, Kinnan, Tivit, Rogsai. Those are still what you're gonna run into for the most part, but then there's gonna be the diversity as well. So,
which I welcome diversity. It's a shame that after this spicy tournament and really spicy top 16, the result was triple Blue Farm in the finals.
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
It's a little disheartening, but like.
Yeah, well, the 3 pilots were no joke, so that's kind of how it goes.
Obviously.
Yeah. I still put that more on the pilots and choosing Blue Farm rather than Blue Farm itself.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the same conversation that I had when people were asking me about like how do you view Francisco Thrasios, and I'm like, bruh, like Tiblusion's really good at Magic.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, what do you mean?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, he's in the tier of people that like you can hand him any deck and he's gonna do well with it. So I'm not surprised to see him top 16 from this strategy, especially when he gets Brewer's advantage. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, that's Lotus Series 2. Lotus Series 3 is coming right up in January. I don't remember when exactly it is. But there's a whole bunch of tournaments coming out right now. The first one is, I don't know if people know Combat Step. I think you had a gameplay video with them, didn't you, just recently?
Yeah, I did do a gameplay video with them. They used to be it was the guy who used to be Kinnan Cam and Asylum Gaming, and they've rebranded as Combat Step. And they are doing some online events. I don't believe it has a cap yet, but like I'm not sure if it's hit the right amount of people or anything. But definitely look up that one. If you see this, feel free to comment your link to your tournament video.
That's January 6th. That's actually right. That's this weekend.
That's this Saturday. It's gonna be in a couple days. And at the same time, I do want to shout out my local LGS here in Denver, Mythic Games in Littleton, Colorado. They have a CEDH tournament that is also this weekend on the 6th that I will be going to. And these past couple weeks, I've spent convincing them to become partnered with Eminence, and now they are officially a gold partner.
Very nice.
So that is awesome. So now it is not just any event, it is a gold event. So I believe there are still a few slots here. So if you're in the Colorado or that area of the world area, feel free to come down for this Saturday to Mythic Games in Littleton, and going to be an awesome event. I know I'm going to be there. Freedom Waffle's going to be there. Tamusian's going to be there. Clutch Crit's going to be there. Like all of that. This range of people are all going to be hanging out.
Yep.
Having a blast on Saturday, so I'm super excited for that event.
Right, and then there's also Mox Masters coming out, which is is that the 16th, I believe.
13th,
13th.
I want to say.
13th.
Saturday?
Yeah, the 13th. And interestingly enough, Mox Masters is now partnered with Chaos, so they're Chaos Mox Masters powered by Chaos tournaments. Okay, cool.
Yeah, which is interesting. I don't know if it's going to be the same invitational or how that's going to work yet. When we get more information on that, we'll probably talk about it again.
For sure. And then
because that like just came out as we're recording this, like right before they just like Chaos put the announcement out, so we don't really know too much about it yet.
Yep. And then there's the Chaos Treasure Series 11, 10, which is the weekend after that, right? So that's the 20th, right? And then
we have
well, but we also have Mythic Lotus Series 3 on the 27th, and like you said, the Boil down in Atlanta on the 27th and 28th, which both of us will be at, by the way. So if please come.
Definitely, the Boil is a huge Eminence event. Get those top deck points. It's a platinum event. It's going to be an awesome time. It's going to be a huge thing. Like, definitely come down to Atlanta if you can. Like, everyone I know is going to be there. We're staying in an Airbnb of like 11 top CDH players, just all fucking like bunking together. It's gonna be a blast. Yeah, it's gonna be a really fun house. It's gonna be really... Dude, Punchy has been giving me so much shit because I was like, dude, I was like, there's so many people in this house. I don't know who's coming. Like, I didn't know you were gonna be there. It's not offensive. I don't fucking know. Because I asked him, I was like, are you gonna be there? He was like, we literally talked about this a few days ago. I was like, there's too many people.
Yeah, it's impossible to track at this point. Is it 11? Is it 14 people? You know, people sleeping on like in their cars outside the house. It's gonna be bonkers. It's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be packed.
Yeah, and it should be a great tournament. There's still slots open. I think there's like 120 people registered so far, and the cap is 200. And if you heard the interview that we had with Zane, they can go a bit above that too. So there's still room. So if you're thinking about it, man, go. It's gonna be so much fun.
Boil's gonna be an absolute blast. I'm super excited for it. And I mean, that's kind of it. I think we also then have Path to the Peak at the beginning of February, like February 3rd or something like that.
That's right. Are they a circuit event yet? Is Path to the Peak got the critical mass to get into gold?
Well, so the online events can only be Emerald tier,
right.
And they can only be Emerald tier if they have at least 60 people or 64 people.
Okay.
So they haven't hit that number yet on any of their events, but they're in the like high 50s, so they're fucking close. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm looking at their page right now. So this is an 84 person event or 80 person cap right now. And there's it hasn't sold much yet. Only six people signed up so far. So, guys,
I mean, a lot of those events, people wait until the last week to sign up and see what their life is like. That's very common. You know, even Mythic Lotus Series, it was this past Saturday. If you looked at it on Wednesday, there were probably 15, 20 people signed up.
Yeah, it was over 100.
Like it was not much. And then yeah, literally the day before it was 60 people, and then the day of it was over 100. Like it just happens. People wake up and they're like, okay, I'll play Magic.
Yep.
that's just common.
Okay, so that's what's coming up. Come see us. Come play with us. There's some new format that Max cooked up that we can apparently play. You want to talk about that Donkey Kong format?
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that one.
Planet of the Apes. Okay. Yeah. This is for fun. It's just for fun, and I've played a bunch of games of it now, and it is really fucking fun. So it is a normal CDH game with a few minor adjustments. The most important main adjustment being that every single player starts with a copy of Ragavan that is indestructible, shroud, can't be affected by anything, can't be sacrificed, can't be blocked, has to attack each combat. What? Like literally any possible effect that you were thinking of that could affect this. Toxic Deluge can't kill it, Psychic can't bounce it, Dress Down can't take down its abilities, its damage can't be prevented, so it works through the One Ring. It gets around everything. Every possible effect you could possibly think of that affects this Ragavan, it doesn't affect this Ragavan. And it does not have haste, so you can't do it on turn 1, but it gets its own combat phase before first main phase, that's Ragavan combat. And so you untap, you draw, you go to Ragavan combat, where it doesn't have haste, so your first turn is ignores this, but you go on your second turn, you untap, you draw, you swing at someone, and one variation on the game is you can choose to chaos roll who you swing at and make it random, or you can choose who you swing at. I like to choose who you swing at because it can get some mind games with Imperial Seal and stuff, of if they put something bad on top and shit like that. But so, you swing at someone, you hit your card with Ragavan, where the way it works is not just a top card like normal, it's actually sort of a cascade, where they have to go until they hit a non-land. And whatever that card is, no matter what card it is, no matter how bad it is for you, as the first priority that you can legally cast that spell, you have to cast that spell, and that spell is uncounterable.
Jesus.
So like what happened to me, like the first time I was playing this game, like I had a hand that was like gonna play a turn 2 mana rocks into Rhystic Study, and I swung at a Nala and hit Windfall, and I had a Windfall.
Oh my god.
You
That's
know?
wild.
And I was
wild.
like, cool. like it just is the way it is. But it's honestly so much fun. Like it has been an absolute blast.
I'll try it. You've intrigued me.
You should definitely try it. You should definitely try it. It's a really, really fun time. And like we have already found some broken synergies for it. Like my buddy played a Malcolm deck, and like the Ragavan is a pirate. So it does help you out there.
Well, I guess the idea
friend,
though is you have to like take your regular CDH deck and be like, we're gonna play Ragavan. And like,
yes.
we're gonna go Planet of the Apes right now. You know, you can't change your decks.
Yeah, so the one thing, Ragavan is banned in the format, so like you can't have a Ragavan in your deck as well. So like if you have a copy of Ragavan, just play with 98 cards. Just take the Ragavan out and put it on the battlefield. Who fucking cares? You know what I mean? You don't have to add in another card.
Yes, I like it.
I wanted to say that Draenith Magistrate was banned in the format, so you can't avoid the Ragavan draws. But the feedback I heard was, don't make Draenith banned, make the spells from Ragavan undrainethable. So no matter what, you can cast those spells.
That makes sense.
Is kind of how it is. And you do have to pay the cost for those spells. And so the funny thing about that, though, is, again, it's the first legal priority you can cast a spell. So like if you hit Pact of Negation off the top of someone's deck, you essentially can't cast spells that turn, because then the first spell you cast, you have to cast the Pact of Negation.
Oh, it's almost like Judge's Tower mixed with CDH somehow.
Sort of, a little bit. It's really, really fun. So there's like some interesting stuff you can do, but also it's like if you, let's say that you hit a 5-drop, and like including the Ragavan treasure, you only have 4 mana, so you can't legally cast that spell first. You could cast your 2-drop first and then play your land, so you can't legally cast that spell at any point if you don't want to cast it. Like there are ways to work around it a little bit, but the first legal priority, like if you hit a spell snare and then you cast a Grand Abolisher, cool, you have to spell snare your Grand Abolisher. Like that's just how it is. Wow. You know, you hit a Windfall, you got to cast it. You hit Ranger Captain, you got to cast it. It's been super, super fun. I'm trying to think if there's any other mentionable rules. Oh, the spells cast by the Ragavan do not trigger draw engines. We have decided on that as well. They do not trigger Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, Esper Sentinel, any of that.
Okay.
They do still trigger effects like Talion, because Talion is not a pay effect to draw. It's not like a taxing effect. It just is something when a spell is cast. Those things will still trigger. But like Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, Esper Sentinel do not trigger off these spells. And the spell does not count towards Rule of Law effects if there's a Rule of Law play.
Okay. Wild.
Those are just
almost like
things we've
those
added
spells
to
are
the
kind of
format.
outside of the game rules at that point.
Yeah, they're just like a separate thing that you still pay the cost for, but are essentially just put on the stack.
Got it.
If you think of it that way. But it's just like it's been really fun. Every single game has resulted in every single person like laughing and having a really great time.
I'll jam it.
I've been
down.
having fun
We'll
with
jam
it.
it. Atlanta, we'll jam it.
It's not something you want to play a ton of games of. Like you don't want to play 10 straight games of Planet of the Apes, but like a 1 or 2 games of it, just like for fun.
I could see like 2 o'clock in the morning. We've been playing all night and everyone's tired and like fuck it, let's do it right now.
It's just Planet of the Apes. Yeah, it is also. Definitely some decks break it more than others. Like I like Ob Nix felt a little cracked with the extra mana. There's definitely considerations for like some decks might be too good with it. Like don't bring a fucking Crick deck to this, you know what I mean? But at the same time, Crick could get totally fucked, because if they have to untap and cast a spell and use all their mana on it, suddenly they can't do their other shit. You know what I mean?
That's why you gotta like not have it be like, hey, let's play Planet of the Apes. Go pick your deck. It has to be you picked your decks. Guess what? We're playing Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes. Yeah, but it's fun.
Yeah,
it's a really good time.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, maybe have you write up the rules so we can put it somewhere.
I will. Okay, you know what? In the description of this video will be a link to a Google Doc where I will write up all of the rules of Planet of the Apes.
Excellent.
We'll figure it out.
But I think, is that it? That's all we're going to talk about today, I think, right? Did we miss anything?
Is that it for today?
Oh,
yeah, what's up?
Yeah, the only other thing, we already talked about it a lot, was the ID stuff and the way that works, but I don't think there's anything more to say about it.
How would you fix IDs? What would be your solution to fix IDs?
Well, you have to make, if you win your first, you have to, it's all about pairings, really, right? You have to pair people against other players who have to win. And I think you said it once, it was like you have to have at least 2 players of the pod who want to win. And as long as that's the state, then people can't ID generally. Although it still gives advantages to decks like our Talion list, where we can kind of force a draw much easier than other decks can.
Yeah, there's always going to be advantages for certain decks.
But it's still better. It definitely needs some kind of correction. Yeah, because that you can't like, get really sick and sleep all day and somehow still make top 16 just by winning your first 2. That's kind of insane.
I will say I am seriously bringing up. I've been playing a lot of Ob Nix lately.
Do it,
dude.
Do it.
The deck is so good. The deck is so good.
I want to
like,
play in Mox Masters. I might be able to. We'll see.
Will you play Florian?
I might be willing to play Florian in Mox Masters.
Thank you. That's all I want. I just want us to play the decks in the same tournament so we can compete. That's all I want, Max. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah, but
I want to defeat Daddy Satellite in battle.
But son, when you win, I win. And when I win,
you
win.
Yes, I agree.
When we both
win
win,
with these things.
Everyone wins.
Yes, I agree with all of these things, but I still want to defeat you.
I know.
Maybe
you'll get your chance. We'll see.
Yeah. No, we just get paired up round 1.
Oh, that's
like, what
that's
the fuck
like
is
my worst
this?
nightmare. I don't want that to happen.
In the finals, though, dude, if we meet on top 4 on Florian and Ob, that shit would be gas.
God, that would be insane.
That shit would be so gas.
Insane. I would love that. Honestly,
that'd be so good. That'd be so good.
It'd be so fun.
I had a really good line last night on Ob.
Go on.
I was playing with Ashani and Naestrom and Wadi. And, I'm going for an Ob turn where I end up with, I have a Mayhem Devil on the battlefield, I have a Prosper on the battlefield, I have a Caderic Parasite on the battlefield. I'm set up in an awesome way. I have 5 treasures, I have a Jessica's Will and some other stuff in exile. And Naestrom finally goes, that's enough, and casts the Silence.
Oh, God.
And I had Dark Red Adnos in hand to go dig for a Final Fortune. And I decided to pass. And just let it happen. And after the game, I had this conversation. Ashani was shocked that I did this. He was really, really surprised when I told him I had the Dark Red Nas. He was like, "Why the fuck would you not Nas there?" And I was like, "Here's my view on the game state that I've presented. You 3 are playing Tameshi, Kinnan, and Thrasios Francisco. You are playing 3 creature-focused combo decks, and I have a Mayhem Devil, a Prosper, and 5 treasures. The odds of you guys being able to win through that is essentially 0. There's just no world. Tameshi can't win through a Mayhem Devil. Kinnan's not winning through a Mayhem Devil with a bunch of treasures. And Francisco Thrasios theoretically could Oracle, but he was tight on mana and had been all game. And the odds of that are just it's not happening.
Right.
It's not happening. And so then I look at that, I'm like, okay, you guys can't win. I've been silenced. I know I can't win through a silence on this turn. So what I would have to do is Dark Writ, Nas, dig for Vamp Tutor or Final Fortune to find a way to get to that, which is not deterministic. And I have this cultivated game state as well, where you guys have fish on the battlefield. I have a Caderic Parasite, where I also hit off your normal draws. So not only do I have the treasures with the Mayhem Devil and the Prosper to give me a bunch more draws, I have the Parasite to give me deterministic more draws, and then I can hold up my mana and I'll be able to end step Nas and go into my turn in an absolutely deterministic state to win the game. And so I had this cultivated situation where, although I'm a turbo deck, my window is in no way closing. My window is absolutely opening and only getting better. There's no reason to push this win right now when I know that I can't lose. And so, I pass the turn. We interact with each other. There ends up being an overloaded Psycrypt on the stack in response to Ashani's Void Widower on Kinnan.
Oh, jeez.
Where I just crack my treasures to dig, and on the second to last treasure, I hit Vamp Tutor. So I Vamp and put Pyro on top, crack the last treasure, and Pyro the Psycrypt. And then Void Widower lands, which essentially just protects me. And then I go to my turn with an Ob that is over 21 power, kill Ashani to get rid of the Void Widower, cast my Conqueror's Flail from Exile, and win the game. I was like, good GG's.
Rough. You ever think about...
But the conversation about not casting the
You ever
Nas
think about putting Sire of Insanity in the deck? No. Okay. I've tried it a few times.
I'm a Nas deck.
Well, but that's okay, because when you Nas, you're going to win on your turn, preferably. Right? And... if you play Sire of Insanity, everyone else has to discard. You now have the advantage over all of them because you're playing stuff from exile, not from your hand.
Yeah, but I have to get pings.
I mean, disclosure, I tried it in Florian. It wasn't quite good enough, but still.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
If casual Ob, I think that's a lie.
Yeah.
I don't think that's quite CDH Ob, especially because my whole philosophy with how I've changed the deck these last few months is continuously making it leaner and leaner and leaner, and it's just efficient and fast and just wins. And that's what's so crazy is the way it cultivates these game states of I don't give a shit if you interact with me. I will just win in another way. My hand, if there wasn't a silence on that turn, that there was a silence. I had the Jessica's Will in exile, where I had Nas in hand, I had Necro in hand, I had Dark Rid in hand. I was good to go in multiple ways. And so all I'm doing is I'm just casting random spells to get these pings and cracking treasures to get these pings to dig for shit that I think they will need to counter to then push through my other things that I will win. So I hit the Jessica's Will and I was like, sick, maybe they'll counter this one. like I'm hoping you interact with me. I don't give a shit. I have too many ways to win the game.
Yeah.
And it's super fun. And it's so different than Kinnan in that way, where with Kinnan I have like very few ways to win. And Talion I have very few ways to win, and I'm like trying to get to them and like controlling the game until I can get to them. And I'm just like, I would like to win the game now, please.
Yeah, try again.
It's very fun. I'm having a blast on it right now. I've been playing way more Ob than Kinnan, and like my win rate on Ob is probably better than my win rate on Kinnan. It's kind of disgusting.
Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe we'll see some Rakdos in
is it finally happening? Are we finally going to have the
I'm not 100% there yet. I'm not going to commit yet, but I'm close. I'm considering it. I played Florian for the first time in a while yesterday, or day before yesterday, and it was gas. I had a great time. So
it was fun, wasn't it? It was a lot of fun.
Best deck not in the database.
We will absolutely. We will absolutely get paired up if we play
100%.
We'll both be 2-0, you know.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I think that's it for today. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this discussion. Like and subscribe if you did. Check out our Patreon page if you feel like it. Don't feel like you have to. But we will be using that money to try to enhance your experience of our show. With that, Max, you want to talk about your coaching a little bit and then take us out?
Yeah, my name is Max Sternberg, also known as WoundedSatellite, and I offer CEDH coaching because that's the thing I've been doing, and it's been going super, super well lately. If you are interested in CEDH coaching, which, by the way, is not just on Kinnan, I do it on a lot of decks and a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's deck review stuff and politics and mulligans and gameplay and strategy and theory, all the different things. If you're interested in any form of CEDH coaching, you can find me on Discord as WoundedSatellite or on Twitter as WoundedSatellite, and just get me on one of those and we can get something scheduled for you. Thank you so much for listening to Colors or Crutch podcast. I was joined, as always, by my incredible host, Daddy Satellite, the Italian man, and we look forward to talking to you guys and seeing you next time.
Thanks, guys.